Last time, we went over the origins of our species and human prehistory. Despite the Neolithic revolution's detriments, sedentary lifestyles and increased population facilitated the growth of civilizations. The first civilizations we know of were all based around rivers. The Mesopotamians, around 3000 BCE, between the Tigris and Euphrates, with the Egyptians soon after in the Nile Valley. The Harappan developed around 2500 BCE in the Indus River Valley, and the Chinese, in 2200 BCE, along the Yangtze and Yellow Rivers. We believe humans settled near rivers because adjacent land was fertile, enabling them to grow food, and the river itself would provide drinking water. It also helped in hunting, as wild animals would often roam out to the river in order to have a drink themselves, making them easy targets. Rivers also made early trade flow faster than by land. Theories seem to suggest that centralization of power began because of these rivers. Flooding and irrigation needed central coordination and had to be managed by some type of governmental system. Since the river was so vital to survival, it needed to be protected as well, giving rise to soldiers who would be loyal to the king or ruler. One important note to take is that by the time of these civilizations emerging, there were societies living all over the world, either practicing hunting and gathering, or agriculture. The first true civilizations were not inherently superior, or more cognitively advanced, than their peers across the globe. In Lower Mesopotamia, city-states would begin to form between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. These non-Semitic peoples would be given the name Sumerians by the Semitic Akkadians, who would eventually develop just to the north. Sumerian history can be divided into different periods. The Ubaid period gets its name from Tel el-Ubaid, the largest settlement mound discovered from this time. Spanning prehistory, the Ubaid period saw the first settlement on the alluvium, brought by farmers who practiced irrigation. Pottery was also painted, with utmost care. The Uruk period, named after the city of Uruk, saw the Sumerian civilization truly take shape. Uruk is regarded as one of the oldest cities in the world, and one of the largest Sumerian settlements. Urbanization led to increased trade down the nearby rivers, and religious centers were built. The intricate painted pottery from the Ubaid was replaced by mass-produced copper pottery. This period also saw the emergence of pictographs, the precursor to the cuneiform system. The short Gemdit Nossa period was known primarily for its pottery, and the emergence of a writing system, known as archaic cuneiform. The early dynastic period saw cuneiform become more normalized, utilizing wedge-shaped impressions on clay tablets. The Epic of Gilgamesh, though written later, mentions leaders and kings of Sumerian city-states from this time, including Gilgamesh, who is thought to be a historical king. Wars between these city-states would become more common, causing them to place more emphasis on armies and defensive walls. The Akkadian period followed, with Sumer becoming part of the Akkadian Empire. Because of Akkadian influence, the Sumerian language would flounder, and all but cease to be a spoken language, merely existing in literature. After a Guti invasion, in which these nomads from the Zagros Mountains overran the Akkadian army, Sumer would enter the Gutian period. Being unfamiliar with urban settlements, the Guti were unable to rule effectively and were driven out. After centuries of foreign rule, the Sumerians would retake control again, under King Ur-nammu, establishing the neo-Sumerian Empire, or Third Dynasty of Ur. This short-lived Sumerian revival would crumble after an attack by Elam in the east, and Amorites from the northwest. The Amorites would eventually conquer all of Mesopotamia from the city-state of Babylon, ending Sumerian hegemony forever. Sumerian writing began with pictograms, pictures used to represent objects, and later became cuneiform and ideograms. Ideograms are similar to pictograms, except pictures were used to represent ideas, instead of objects. Sumerians, like most ancient cultures, were polytheistic, believing in a pantheon of anthropomorphic gods. While different city-states worshipped different gods, a few of these deities would stand out. Major gods included An, god of the sky and heavens, Enlil, god of the wind and storms, Ninhursag, goddess of fertility and the earth, Utu, god of the sun and justice, Nana, god of the moon, and Inanna, goddess of sex and warfare. One of the biggest city-states in Sumer was Ur, founded around 3800 BCE during the Ubaid period, in present-day southern Iraq. Its patron deity was the moon god Nana, with the city's name translating to the abode of Nana. Ur developed into one of the biggest urban centers in Sumer, and was thought to be the largest city in the world during the Sumerian Renaissance period in the 21st century BCE, under ur-nammu. It was during this time that the ziggurat of Ur was built. Dedicated to Nana, it served as the city's administrative center, and part of Ur's large temple complex. The city was also at the forefront of advances in irrigation, and a code of laws, called the Code of Ur-nammu, which predates the famous Code of Hammurabi by centuries. Shulgi was Ur-nammu's successor, and continued Ur's hegemony, deifying himself during his reign. Ur would continue during the reign of 3 more kings, but was sacked around 1940 BCE by Elamites from the east, ending the neo-Sumerian Empire. It would still be a city of economic importance. Like the rest of Sumer, the city of Ur would eventually become part of the First Babylonian Empire, under Hammurabi. After being part of different empires, this urban center would mysteriously become uninhabited by 500 BCE. Known as the first civilization, Sumer was already quite advanced in its own right, utilizing the wheel, plow, arithmetic, bricks, and early chariots during its long life in southern Mesopotamia. Though they were the first, there were others who would base themselves in between the Tigris and Euphrates. We will take a look at them next time, and how they became inextricably linked to Sumer.